Hello, friends, and welcome back to Concert Conversations, our wonderful opportunity to talk with Maestro Mark Russell Smith, the conductor and music director of the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, in advance of our spectacular journeys that we take together. And boy, are we going to take a great one for the February Masterworks series, and that is a chance to enjoy Omar's Journey, which is a new concert opera adaptation of the Pulitzer Prize-winning work by Rhiannon Giddens and Michael Abels. And we'll get into a little bit about the plot in just a moment. But first, Maestro, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
And I think it's always good for listeners to know, because it's one of the greatest gifts right now, I think, of this past decade of being a patron of the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, is that thanks to your nearly lifelong friendship with the amazing composer Michael Abels, we get a chance to enjoy music well ahead of the cresting wave of other audiences, the music of Michael Abels. But would you mind reminding us how that friendship started?
Oh, man. Well, yeah, I mean, it started in second grade. He moved to Arizona, where I was born and reared. He was actually born in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and then for health reasons moved to, he had bad asthma and the farm dust and everything was not good. So he moved to Arizona. So he appeared in my second grade classroom, and we were classmates ever since second grade, all through high school. We went to different colleges, but we remained friends. I mean, he was in my wedding, and we've just been lifelong friends and musical partners. And he's had, especially in this latter stages of his, in the past, 5 to 6 years, has just taken off, and the Pulitzer Prize-winning and writing for Lucasfilms, and I mean, just doing all sorts of amazing things. So I'm just so honored to be his friend, and actually, of course, he's first and foremost a great composer. We're not playing his works because he's my friend. We're playing it because he's a great composer. And we've even before he got super famous, we in Quad were commissioning things and we were playing his music. And so it's not a bandwagon thing. It's a lifelong support thing.
Well, and when I talk to people, friends in other parts of the country, and say that we get these things, that's always the way it's greeted, is that, wow, how do you guys have an in with this incredible composer? So yeah, it's we're grateful for your friendship, but we certainly understand that that's just given us like an extra, I don't know, gold
Right.
level pass. Right?
And I would say it's as a music director, it's, you find people you support, and you find talent. And I mean, like we do with soloists, actually, we find young soloists, and then it's not just a one-off. So we invite them back, to play for a second and a third and the fourth concert. And so they develop a relationship with our audience, and our audience says, oh yeah, I remember back, 6 years ago when you played Rachmaninoff, and now you're playing this, or, and so to find talent that you feel like you can support and that you commit to is something really important. We could, and of course we play all sorts of composers and we support contemporary composers, but Michael Abels, we've done him more than anybody else, and there's a reason for that, because of course I know him well, but also because it's you find somebody like that, and I think it's incumbent on us to continue to support, and not just like a one-off way. And so absolutely, with Abels, that's what we've done.
Now, the story that we're going to be sharing is that of Omar Ibn Said, who lost his freedom in West Africa and was an enslaved person in South Carolina in the United States. And then we're going to let that story unfold for us with the help of some soloists who will be joining the symphony at the front of the stage. But I want to know a little bit about your take on how not simply the libretto and the story, but the way the music conveys the story and the journey. Because I understand, and I've not heard it, but the music will bring together some of the traditions of classical opera with traditions of West African storytelling and culture.
Right. So this version, Omar's Journey, is is kind of a boiled down, like to its essence, version of the Grand Opera. Rhiannon Giddens and Michael Abels collaborated. It was commissioned by South Carolina. What festival? I can't.
Spoleto?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. The Spoleto Festival in South Carolina commissioned Rhiannon Giddens, and then Rhiannon Giddens got Michael Abels on board. And so to create this opera around this amazing historical character. Um, and so Rhiannon Giddens is not a quote unquote classical musician per se. I mean, she's an incredible folk singer. I mean, she actually was trained as an opera singer at Oberlin, but just has an amazing career and is really one of the best musicians I've ever encountered, and certainly one of the best singers I've ever encountered. So she created, along with Michael, created this opera, writing the libretto, kind of figuring out the whole trajectory of the whole thing. And so it's a grand opera with chorus and with, big numbers of soloists. But the reality is, not, opera is so expensive to produce, and it's such a huge commitment of time that it's for contemporary operas to have life. Sometimes composers, make like this, like exactly what Michael did, is what Michael and Rhiannon did, was make this boiled down version commissioned by the Ojai Festival in California. And so we're only the second performance of this version of Omar's Journey. And so it's a way that these great works of art can have a different kind of life. It's a different aesthetic than grand opera. There's no big chorus, but the story is, it's more direct, it's more intimate. The grandness, which of course is part of great opera, is, we can't have that because it's a much smaller orchestra. Kind of just the essential characters are being played out, and some of the chorus parts are covered by other things, and so the kind of nuts and bolts of working that out is of interest to me, and of course to Michael Abels. But it's a way that places like Quad or wherever can have can hear this great music and hear this great story in a not in the grand opera way, but in a more intimate way. And so it's really exciting to be able to do that. And as soon as I heard that this version was available, and when I went out to Ojai to hear it, it's like, we're doing it in Quad. Absolutely, this is something that we want to do. And so, there are singers who sang in the big opera. It was a Boston Lyric Opera, it was a San Francisco Opera, L.A. Opera, and so the cast members that are coming to us, almost all of them have had experience singing the big roles, and so they know the music. That music doesn't change. Their music doesn't change. There's some additional things for them, and so it's really the orchestration is boiled down, and the action is kind of cut to its essence. And so it's very fast moving, very dramatic, and just tells this amazing story of Omar.
Well, part of me is very hopeful. I've been telling friends about this in other parts of the country, that we get some audience members who are going to travel some distance, at least from Chicago, to have this opportunity, because we're getting this opportunity well before 99% of the country, and I think that's very exciting.
Well, it is exciting, and it says something about us, I think, as an organization. I mean, this is exactly, I mean, this is a story that needs to be told, and it's by an underrepresented composer, and we're committed to that, and we're committed to being on the cutting edge, and that I mean, it's not a cheap thing to put on. I mean, with a big cast and even with a small orchestra, I mean, this is a big commitment from our board and from our organization, but it's a commitment like nobody bats an eye about it, because it's such an important thing to do. It's an important statement to make, and it's great music. And so again, in the trajectory of the season, it's something like completely different. It's something completely different than we've had before. I mean, we've helped commission Jacob Banks. We brought other works to life, smaller operas, and so that's part of our DNA as well. So this is just another opportunity to bring opera to life in a smaller scale way that is manageable for us. But it's also a big commitment on the board's part and on our part. And I'm very, very proud and pleased that our organization considers something like this that important, that we all invest in that, and that our audiences are open to a different kind of experience and something that is off the beaten track from a regular symphony concert. So all those things really speak to who we are in the Quad Cities.
Well, one of the things that I'm personally really looking forward to as a person who has not seen the opera, so I'm not familiar with the arc of the story, but my understanding is that the story is ultimately one of uh, the enduring human spirit. I mean, the indomitability of the human spirit, which is a very positive thing, even though the subject matter is placed in one of the most negative chapters of our nation's history, slavery. Um, but I trust Michael Abels, thanks to your being an ambassador for us of his music. His music is so evocative. And what are some of the ways that he then is able to translate the hopeful aspects in the midst of this otherwise, quite dark story?
Well, I mean, the storyline speaks for itself, and the resilience of Omar himself and the character is portrayed in the music, like, very clearly. I mean, we have ethnic elements, or I mean, we're using Western instruments generally, but the way the percussion is used, certainly the harmonies, and the way Omar is singing, I mean, these are all it's all a beautiful mix of Western and African, and that's what Abels is so skilled at. Is I mean, he has such an amazing ear for color and for being able to evoke evoke emotions, evoke styles, evoke eras, evoke countries, really just the colors that he's able to create vocally. And that's Rhiannon Giddens also. I mean, she also is so diverse stylistically. I mean, she sings Appalachian folk music and African music and Dolly Parton and everything else. I mean, she sings everything. And so these are two composers who are so skilled in so many different genres that they have all this arsenal of style and color to from which to draw, to create this story.
Well, one of the things I did want to ask about is when we encounter opera, uh, mostly, I mean, there's lots of great new opera music, but it's one thing when you have something like, say, The Marriage of Figaro, where the representation of Figaro is very different in the public understanding. He was a really kind of a revolutionary figure in the end of the 1700s, uh, and yet we can still apply our modern day sensibilities to it. Uh, and I don't know if that's a constraint as a conductor or a presenter of something like that, or if that's somehow freeing. But here you've got something where we don't really have an image of this opera. We don't have expectations of who Omar will be the way we might have of who Violetta is supposed to be, for instance. Musically, is that an opportunity for you?
Well, I mean, I would argue that most people don't know who Violetta is or have an idea about Violetta. I mean, it's no different. It's no different. I mean, the characterization is in the music and is in the libretto, and that's true of Figaro as is with Omar. And so, I mean, that's the guiding principle for me. Yeah, I mean, think. I think that the geniuses who created Omar
Yeah.
are so clear. I mean, it's I wouldn't say self-evident, but I mean that the way the music is used and the way the dramatic structure is, his character evolved, and each character, is beautifully drawn, is portrayed, by the music and by the trajectory of the libretto. And so, I mean, that's the same of Verdi as it is Mozart and Giddens and Abels too.
Hmm. Well, as ever, I want to thank you for fielding one that I send right out of left field. I appreciate you doing that. If nothing else, if Michael Abel's publicist is watching, they can say that Omar's been compared with Figaro and Violetta. But for now, though, I think that's going to do it for us. There's anything else you want to prepare us for? And of course, we want, folks, we want you to come and join Maestro and me and maybe some other special guests an hour before concert time, both Saturday night in the Adler Theater and Sunday at Centennial Hall. But anything else at this time, Maestro, that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, this is an opportunity for us to engage the whole community. And so the African American community in Quad Cities is very much a partner in this, and we've had some really wonderful discussions and workshops, and so it's really, as it should be, a springboard for establishing relationships and having discussions about things, and that is what art can do better than anything else, and get us thinking in ways kind of outside of ourselves, from every side, from people, from regular Quad City Symphony patrons or people who've never been. I mean, it just opens doors and opens the opportunity to discuss things. And so that is yet another part that we didn't really talk about, but that's fine. It's a tangential but super important part of doing a project like this, because of the history, because of all the uncomfortable questions that it's asked, because of the resilience of the human spirit, all of these things. It just opens up great discussions that again, that's what great art can do.
Well, and it puts me in mind of the symphony's mission, which talks about access meeting inspiration, which I think is a great illustration here. For now, though, I'll offer again my thanks to Maestro Mark Russell Smith, the music director and conductor of the Quad City Symphony Orchestra. Thanks to Chris Connolly and Wells Fargo Advisors for their support of this series. And friends, we look forward to seeing you very soon. Ticket information at qcso.org. Maestro, thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.